Good afternoon, everyone. You're listening to St. Rose Internet Radio right here in Albany, New York. I'm Brennan Gallagher, your host. Well, actually, not really your host because I'm sitting here with Brian Cody, who works at Fly 92.3 Radio, and he's been a host here for a while, so I kind of feel like I'm in an awkward position here being the host.
But, it's just fun, though. You know what, though? You do your thing, and I'll just sit here and be the guest. It's your show, your studio today.
So, Brian, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing really well. Thanks.
Sweet. So, this is a great, class I'm taking. We're learning a lot about radio and stuff. So, generally, a lot of people are really interested in what you do. A lot of people listen to your show, too. I mean, do you have to, sign a lot of autographs?
You sound so surprised by that.
No, they do, though. I mean, you're technically like a local celebrity. That's pretty cool.
No, I mean, listen, I've been doing it for probably going on almost 20 years now. So, when you do something long enough, people tend to take notice, I guess.
Yeah. Sweet. So, how many years have you been with Fly 92?
It'll be 20 or so years that I've been working here in some capacity in December. So I was hired back in 1993. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. Is this the first radio station you've worked for?
No, I worked for a smaller jazz station for a little while, right when I graduated from the broadcast school, which is the New School of Radio and Television. And that was like the first job that I really had, but it was only for a couple of months. I didn't really... I wasn't there long enough to, to kind of gain any kind of reputation or ever get comfortable over there, because while I was working there, I wasn't really, it wasn't a place that I wanted to settle, So I was working there for a few months, but I was still looking for other jobs in the area, and that's when I had the opportunity to work at Fly 92, and I just scooped it right up.
Yeah. Wow. For those of you that might just be tuning in, we're sitting here with Brian Cody, who is Fly Morning Rush himself. Got a chance to...
I have a great partner, so there's two of us.
Yes,
it's me and Chrissy. We are the Fly Morning Rush.
Yes. So now a little bit about radio. What got you into it initially? Was it an aspiration you had as a kid, or was it something you sort of just found along the way?
That's a good question. I just... Knowing, I never really knew that I was going to get into it, but I knew that I always loved it. I would listen to radio growing up. I listened to Fly 92. I listened to a station called Z-Rock, but I listened to a lot of sports talk as well. I would always be that kid trying to get the AM stations out of Detroit or out of New York City in the middle of the night just to hear people talk. There was something very personal about the radio for me when I was growing up. I felt very connected to it, and I, of course, loved. I felt like it was magical. I felt like it was something that I don't know. It was weird. There was an illusion to it. There was something about it that just felt really big. You
just knew it was right.
Yeah, I just knew it was right, and I enjoyed it. And I found myself listening to so much radio, whether it was music stations like this one or talk stations like the one out in New York City, WFAN. And I was like, you know what? I think I'd like to do that. I was young enough where I felt like if I got started, I could, work at it and get better and improve. So I guess it went from being just a hobby to being a passion, and then trying to find a way to make it like a job.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was lucky enough to get my foot in the door at the right time.
Absolutely. Did you go to school for radio at all? Or?
I did, yeah. I graduated from Albany High in '91, and then I went to Siena College for 1 year and didn't do very well in college. It just wasn't for me, and it was a weird time. And as much as colleges like to take your money, at Siena they were like, you know what, Brian, your grades are so bad, we won't even take your money. So go in a different direction, and I did, and I left Siena. And then I was kind of a lost soul, and that's when I stumbled upon a place called the New School of Radio and Television, which is like a radio broadcast arts and television trade school. And I did, I think a 600-hour course. It was like 6-month course, just basically, learning about radio, doing a show, just kind of, getting some radio practice to enter the profession. So that was the schooling that I have for radio.
Yeah, wow. And I mean, yeah, sometimes college just isn't for everybody, Yeah. I mean, there's other avenues. I mean, I know college really isn't for me either. I'm trying to get through it, but,
for me, it was just a tough time. I really missed my high school friends, and they had all gone away to school. So I don't know, it was weird. When I was at Siena and I was commuting, I felt kind of like an outcast. I never really fit in or belonged, and I never really embraced it. And that school never really embraced me either. And it was just not a good situation. So, yeah, it wasn't for me. And looking back, I don't really know if I would change anything. I obviously, an education, like a formal education, is important. But as long as you keep teaching and educating yourself, I'm a naturally curious person. I don't feel like I missed out, on learning. I definitely feel like I missed out on some of that college experience, but I don't think it's hurt me all that much.
Yeah. That's kind of how I feel too with St. Rose and all that. It's kind of,
Yeah.
I commute, but I don't really fully embrace it. Maybe I should, but I don't know.
It's hard though, when it's easy to feel like you're sort of ostracized and an outcast. The people who live there, they're hanging out together, they're eating
Absolutely.
together, they're going out. When you're just driving and going home, you don't really feel like you're a part of a community. And I never felt that at Siena, so it was easy for me to basically slack off and not even go to class.
Yeah.
I just felt so disconnected.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But the thing is about college, like you said, I mean, you're right, a formal education is great to have, but even when I didn't feel like not having a degree or not going to college didn't mean that I stopped learning.
Mm-hmm.
I read, I
Sometimes
asked
you learn
questions.
more.
Life experience can be sometimes more important than college experience.
Yeah, sometimes you learn more, without college
Yeah,
at all.
I agree with that.
But yeah, so tell me a little bit about Fly 92 then. What's it like working for one of the most popular radio stations, if not the most popular radio station?
It definitely is. It's not everybody's favorite radio station, but the great thing about it is that everybody has heard of it and has an opinion of it. You either like it or you don't like it, but you know what it is. It's been in the area and the community, for 35 plus years. Radio is a tough medium in that, it's very disposable. People are busy with their life, and, how much is radio important to them? People are listening to digital radio and listening to satellite radio, and they're on Facebook and on Instagram. So there's all these other things that people do sometimes besides listen to the radio. But Fly has always been important, I think, in people's lives. I think it makes them feel young. I think it makes them feel connected to the area. We give away big prizes. We try to have a fun morning show that gets people's day started. So for me, it's an honor to work at a radio station that actually still matters in the area. The ratings are good, and Albany and the Capital Region still seems to embrace it, which is exciting for me.
Yeah, wow. So what kind of little things do you do to kind of keep people entertained? Like you were showing me the recordings of your mom and your dad and stuff. That's very funny.
Yeah, thanks. No,
But-
Chrissy and I just try to be topical and fun, and relevant. And, we try to get into the minds of what matter to the people of the Capital Region. So, sometimes we're just on the air goofing off and telling jokes. Sometimes we're talking about, celebrities like Justin Bieber. Sometimes we're giving away tickets for Justin Timberlake. Sometimes we're having my parents read, autocorrect fails that are, can be a little dirty, a little spicy. And sometimes it's just, talking about issues that matter to the Capital Region and kind of getting the Capital Regions back. Sometimes it's just being a voice for the listeners or the citizens of the area. It's a lot of different things. So you're always preparing content in your mind. Whenever I see something, observe something, or experience something, I try to remember it and I try to catalog it, because you never know when you're going to need it. You might see something crazy at a supermarket that could be part of a story you tell down the road. You might see something happen on the streets that you're like, whoa, I got to talk about this. I couldn't believe I saw blank. So my life that I live, my eyes are always wide open, looking for content to kind of bring to the show in some way, shape, or form, whether it's walking down the street, walking around the office, or watching television.
Yeah, I think that pertains to pretty much any type of storytelling, like in film and stuff. In writing, you kind of just have to engage life, and that's kind of.
And it's it's one of those things where some people just don't have the discipline or want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to a lot of people who, I've worked with people who tell great stories off the air, but they don't want to engage. They don't want to talk about these things on the air. Maybe it's too personal, or maybe it makes them too vulnerable. I've never been that kind of person. I talk about my whole life, the good, the bad, and the ugly on the air. And I think that's something, that connection that you make with the listener is very, very important, especially in morning radio. You want the listener to feel like they know you. And I think, like you said, filmmaking, it's personal. It's hard to make a movie about something that you know nothing about.
Yeah.
Your great filmmakers are probably telling a story that comes from somewhere, usually.
Yep.
And those are the movies, those are the productions that really, I think, have the most impact. And it's the same, like you say, it's the same for radio.
Yeah, wow, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about maybe Chrissy. What's it like working with her? It seems like you guys have a very strong, you're comfortable together. You have a strong relationship in a professional sense.
No, we do. We have good rapport. People say we have great chemistry, which is always a great compliment.
Yeah.
To feel like when they listen to us, it's comfortable and it's easy. Chrissy's awesome. She's a great co-host. You know, I always say that in terms of my life, one of the best relationships that I've ever cultivated is my relationship with Chrissy, because we work so well professionally together. We've achieved some success, but we also deal with each other every day. I mean, you see how close we are. We're 3.5, 4 feet away from each other. Imagine being this close to me every 5, 6 days a week for 4 or 5 hours a day, and then outside of the studio as well. It can be tense at times, and you can get under each other's skin, and it could be annoying, and it could be frustrating. But we always maintain we're very respectful of each other's space. And I always tell people that she's the yin to my yang. Like my strengths are her weaknesses, and her weaknesses are my strengths. We're not the same person by any stretch of the imagination. We're not best friends when we get out of here, but we're a very cohesive unit. And Chrissy is one of the most consistently excellent performers. Every day she's in here, whether she's sick, whether she's got personal problems, whether she doesn't feel good. And she's always just cheery and bubbly and fun. And I think that she's hilarious.
Yeah,
so I think
is.
we work really well together.
Yeah, you definitely do. I mean, when I listen to the show, it definitely sounds like you guys do.
And she puts up with a lot of my shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that about her.
Yeah.
And never takes anything personal,
Yeah, and it's kind of nice too, because this is like a nice closed off room, so you can kind of, even though you're speaking to the community, you can kind of close yourself off and get in your own little world and kind of just talk.
That's a great point. And it is very comfortable in here. And sometimes we forget we're on the air.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah,
because you kind of get lost in your own world, and it is fun because, like you said, I mean, we're broadcasting to so many people, but for me and Chrissy, it's just her and I having a conversation, and we just allow people to kind of come into our world.
Yeah. Wow. Now, for those of you who want to know a little bit more about Brian, along with his career as a professional radio host, he's also a co-promoter for professional boxing here in the Capital Region. So for any of you fight fans out there, Brian's kind of the guy to know here. So, Brian, with that being said, tell us a little bit about Aries Promotions, man. What's that all about?
Well, it's funny because, I mean, part of the reason why I got into radio and broadcasting is because I just have a passion for sports, and I feel like if I wasn't on the radio doing this, I think I'd be working hopefully in sports in some capacity, because I love it. It's just a passion, and I want to do something that I have a passion for. And about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I really got into boxing, on a fitness level. And then for a while, I was married to and very attached to a professional boxer, which sort of helped me meet some of the right people and kind of fall in love with the sport from that aspect. Yeah. But I've always been a boxing fan. And then back in March, I had an opportunity from 2 of the guys that were partners with Aries to become the third, and they allowed me to buy in for a reasonable amount of money to get a 33 1/3% ownership of Aries Promotions. And so now I'm doing it, and it's fun, it's exciting, it's interesting. We've yet to make any money. Yeah. It's an expensive hobby right now. Yeah. But we hope to make a few bucks at the very least, break even, but have fun. Have a chance to maybe manage or promote a fighter who fights in Vegas or Atlantic City, or becomes really, really big in the area. And our goal is to put on, high quality shows in the Capital Region for the fight fans that are still here, and hopefully make some new fight fans along the way.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing too, is that Mike Tyson's from upstate New York, and look what happened to him. And now we have Nick Brinson coming up, which you guys are promoting, and he's looking good.
Yeah, I know he is, and Nick Brinson has a chance to do something pretty special. It's tough because Mike Tyson, when you're a heavyweight, and you knock people out, people just they just migrate to you. That's what people think about when it comes to boxing. They want big knockouts and a lot of punches and a lot of excitement. And Nick is a smaller guy. I mean, he's 160 pounds. He's got good power, but we're still trying to introduce him to the Capital Region, and hopefully that'll catch on. And if not, and we think Nick will catch on. If not, he's going to have an opportunity to fight out of the area against some top upper echelon guys, because he's really, really talented.
Mm-hmm. And I thought his last fight was good. A lot of people were kind of thinking it was a little bit boring. I mean, I kind of thought his opponent was dancing around the ring. He was kind of running away. I mean, things like that sometimes can make a fight boring, but I definitely think he's looking good.
Yeah, styles definitely make fights. And you don't know that. We put Nick in against somebody, and we're thinking, okay, Nick's just going to destroy this guy, but little do we know, the guy came here, and, you're right, he danced around the ring for 10 rounds because he didn't want to get hurt. And it sucked. It was tough for the fans because I think that a lot of people expected Nick to have a big knockout, and I know Nick wanted a big knockout. He was chasing it. He was chasing the knockout, just never happened. And that guy was running. So that was a little bit frustrating because we felt like it was an opportunity missed. We really wanted to showcase him during that fight, and it never really materialized. So, but that's the ups and downs of the sports, and he'll fight again for us in a couple of months.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing, too, is a lot of people think that boxing is kind of a dying sport. A lot of people that aren't involved in it, you and I are very involved in that sport, so we kind of don't really see that. I can kind of see it in a sense, but I mean, how do you feel about that? Like, do you think with Aries you guys are trying to bring it back a little bit, or?
I hope it is definitely, you think of football, basketball, baseball, as the big three, and when you think of combat sports, a lot of people think of MMA and they love UFC, but I definitely think that I've always been a boxing fan, and I think it's a great sport. I think it's exciting. I think there still is a general interest. I mean, you look at Floyd Mayweather, who, earned more money than any other professional athlete in the past, 12 to 16 months, and he's only fought, 2 or 3 times. So there are eyeballs, watching him, watching his fights. The problem is that the sport doesn't always, the sport doesn't have a great heavyweight now, which I think hurts. A lot of the heavyweights are European guys. I think people in this country, they're longing for like the next, big knockout artist, and I think that will make it exciting again in the sport. But with guys like Pacquiao and Mayweather, I think those guys are always entertaining for the sport. But it's a lot of little guys now. But I definitely think that there's, there's an audience for it. I don't know if the sport is growing. I'd like to see it grow a little bit more. Yeah. But that's part of our responsibility, is to make compelling matchups and, promote our local guys and make them exciting. And I think that it's losing to MMA, but I think that boxing will always have its niche.
Absolutely.
It's just, you have to excite those fans. That boxing niche is there, but if they're not excited, they're not going to fork over the cash.
Yeah.
You got to give them a reason. So I think there's enough fans for it. I don't think that the sport is necessarily growing at a huge rate, but I think it's one of those sports that stays pretty, like hockey. I think it just has a very steady stream of fans. Yeah, very consistent.
Yeah, and those niche fans always seem to understand the sport too better than most people do from the outside. Kind of look at it as being barbaric or aggressive, and it's really not like that. I've learned a lot from the sport. It's taught me a lot about my character and stuff like that. I think it's definitely a great thing.
Oh gosh, it's great for the fighters, and you're right. The fans of boxing tend to be pretty sophisticated in terms of understanding what goes into it. The life of a fighter is, the kind of discipline that it takes is off the charts. Yeah. To make weight, to not put anything bad in your body. You're training all the time. It's a very difficult thing. You see offensive linemen in the NFL, and they could get as fat as they want.
Yeah, yep.
As long as they stay pretty strong. Pitchers in Major League Baseball, they're not always in the best shape. And even some of your best hitters in Major League Baseball aren't always in the best shape. But there's the kind of discipline that it takes to be a professional boxer is off the charts in relation to the kind of, the kind of status that you get from doing it. But it really is a great sport, and it teaches you so much about yourself. And I don't do it, I do it for fitness, but watching these athletes, it's been amazing in the last 5 or 6 months, getting sort of an inside look into their preparation and what goes into being a professional boxer.
Yeah, I do it for cardiovascular conditioning as well. But it is interesting because even when you are in the best shape of your life as an athlete, you can't really condition yourself into courage. Like, that's something that, takes a warrior.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point.
So it's pretty cool. But back to radio a little bit. What kind of aspirations do you have with being a radio host? Do you plan on, do you want to stick with, obviously you want to stick with Fly 92, but do you want to progress with it, or?
I love what I'm doing now. If I could sign up to do this morning show and still be, relevant and still be somebody who's, on top of my game for another 15 or 20 years, like an Elvis Duran, or there's a lot of guys. Even Howard Stern is well into his 50s. Yeah. I'm 40 years old. I feel like I'm better now than I've ever been. I feel like the chemistry that I have with Chrissy continues to get better every day, even though we've been doing it for so long. And if they wanted to keep me here for another 10, 15 years, I would gladly do it. If an opportunity came to work in a big market like Chicago or Philadelphia or Boston or something, I would definitely entertain the idea, but I'm not actively, aggressively seeking anything like that. But it would be nice to be lured away for obviously a big, huge payday. But in the meantime, I do pretty well here. I love what I do. It's comfortable for me. I have great managers and bosses who let me and Chrissy have as much creative control and freedom. That's like so important to me. Like I want to be able to come in here and do the kind of show I want to do. I mean, obviously Chrissy and I know what the audience wants, but for the most part, the show takes on a life of our own, right? It's ours. And I take a lot of pride in that. So there's so many great things that I have here that I'm not sure if I really would want to change any of it. I kind of like to sort of coast along and continue to work hard and do good stuff here like it is for the next 5, 10, 15 years if possible.
Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sitting down with me, man. Appreciate it. Everyone, This was Brian Cody. He's one of the hosts for Fly Morning Rush. So thank you.